Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome back to another amazing and exciting episode of Ummahpreneur. In this podcast, I'm going to speak with Sister Shams, who is the co-founder of RxCourse. And we're going to dive into what that company is, exactly what they do. But I'm sure you've already guessed by the name that they're in the healthcare space. And it's really interesting and unique what they've been doing over the last couple of years, inshallah. So I'm going to dive into all of this with her, share her experience. And I'm going to let her really just kind of actually chime in here and share in her own words what her company is about, what they do, so that you guys can learn a little bit more. So Sister Shams, I'm super excited to dive into this today. Assalamu alaikum. How are you?
Wa alaikum assalam. Thank you so much, Brother Avi, for having me today.
It's a
And
pleasure.
I'm so excited. It's amazing to join Ummahpreneur. And thank you so much for inviting me today.
Of course, the pleasure is definitely all mine. And again, the people listening don't know this, but we had scheduled this like for 2 p.m. Eastern time, which is where I'm at right now. It's like 2:15. I was a little bit delayed because I had to kind of run back from Jama'ah, and you were kind enough to accommodate that and just kind of wait for me to reschedule. So I just wanted to let you know that I appreciate it and really just appreciate you coming on the podcast. So tell us a little bit about RxCourse. What is it exactly? What is this idea that you guys came up with, and what are you building? What do you offer?
So RxCourse, in a nutshell, it's an e-learning platform and like a social media platform, two-in-one platform for
Okay.
pharmacists. And especially we're targeting newcomer pharmacists in Canada, immigrant pharmacists, international pharmacy graduates. They come in different terms.
Okay.
And we are trying to give them a hand to get into the Canadian workforce by either preparing them for the licensure exams by doing preparation courses for them, or giving them a hand to get a foothold in the Canadian pharmaceutical industry by other courses in the Canadian industry. Other than the courses, our services are totally free for newcomers by mentoring them, teaching them about the ways actually to get in fit with the Canadian workforce. Yeah, and we are even focusing more for the sisters, the ladies that are newcomers, because it's kind of like really difficult. You are a newcomer, a mother, a pharmacist, you're trying to get the licensure, you're trying to get your first job in Canada. We understand the struggle, and RxCourse came to life to ease it a little bit on them, to lead the way for them, and help them thrive actually in Canada.
Okay, got it. And what is your personal background? Before you started this company, everyone, kind of sees the business and sees the entrepreneur, but where did you start? What were you before?
Okay, so I studied PharmD, or Doctor of Pharmacy degree, from the University of Jordan. And actually, I'm kind of like a tech savvy, so I love
Okay.
tech so much, and a web developer as well, and a smartphones developer. So these things together, they have like, I have to complement both of these things, the technology and the healthcare together, and create different projects. So I had a project before actually for archiving system back in the university days, and just to help students reach their material, their notes, their records, lecture records, and archiving it. So we would keep it for them for years and years after. They won't lose it or anything. So the idea of RxCourse, actually, that I found there is a gap in Canada regarding the help that is provided for international pharmacy graduates. So that is how we came up with the idea, and
Okay.
especially the pandemic, COVID-19 really inspired us to do RxCourse.
Subhanallah. And when you wanted to bring this idea to life and you wanted to really create something out of nothing, which is what every entrepreneur ultimately sets out to do, what were the first initial steps that you both took to bring this idea to reality? Can you remember the initial few days when you were working on this?
Oh yeah, definitely. So what happened is, as I'm telling you, COVID-19 hit, and I actually was enrolled with the University of Toronto for a program, and they canceled that program during that year. They didn't know what to do with the COVID-19 and going online and everything. And once in a sudden, I found myself doing nothing. Like I was really planning to complete that program. And I was still connecting with our students back in Jordan with the previous platform that I was telling you about. And the students, they were in limbo because of COVID-19. Everything goes online, no live lectures. And me and my brother were thinking, why don't we just build an e-learning platform for them and help them, to do their courses online? Because sometimes, the e-learning systems, they are not always, predictable or easy to use for all the students. However, after we built up the platform for the students and we started inviting professors, like, hey, we built this e-learning platform, why don't you come in to help your students and everything? They were like, it's illegal. I was like, okay.
And I was going to ask about that, yeah, because you're in the healthcare niche, right? Which is, there's a lot of like legalities involved.
Exactly. So they were in Jordan, we're in Canada. It can't kind of like didn't make sense a lot. But at the same time, I enrolled in multiple entrepreneurship programs, like with Access, with Startup Company Plus, with the city of Mississauga. And there were a lot of ideas. One of them, and that's the thing, like, what is the struggle that you are facing yourself? And what is the problem that we want to solve?
Yeah.
And then I found out there is a bigger struggle. Back in Jordan or whatever country, those students are with their families, with their peers, in their home country. But the struggle, actually, the people who are struggling are the newcomers. And COVID-19 gave me the space to connect with many, many, many immigrants in Canada and pharmacists who are, oh my God, like facing issues with, for example, divorce issues, facing health issues, financial issues, psychological issues, just because, just to get their degree done. That's all. Like they're doing all of these hardships. And for all of us, Canada is like the dream country. And this is how we end with. So we didn't accept that fact, and we decided to, come in and make that change. So we started with actually just a YouTube series about how to do the licensure in Arabic. We did it in Arabic primarily. And then, people came in and they said, do you teach? Like, can you do courses for us? And we were like, yeah, okay, why not? Let's do that. And this is how we started. And it was hard at the beginning. Yeah, there were a lot of issues that we faced. Probably we can move into it later.
For sure. I'm sure. I mean, with any business, right? It's like you initially start and you're like, okay, I have this idea, I have this problem that I want to solve. And in your mind, you're like, yes, it's going to be challenging, but it's always like, a smooth ride to the top, like every step forward. But usually what you realize in entrepreneurship is that it's not like this escalator where you just keep moving upwards with every step. It's more like a roller coaster where it's just ups and downs constantly. And you're just hoping that overall the trajectory is upwards and you continue to grow, inshallah. Now, one thing that you touched upon, I do want to touch upon actually, because it's a very interesting thing that you mentioned. I'm someone who was born in Canada. So my parents immigrated to Canada from Lebanon many, many years ago. And I was born and raised here. I've actually never been to Lebanon. I've never visited. And, I don't understand or know what the perspective is of someone who wasn't born in Canada and wants to immigrate. As you mentioned, and I've heard this before, is that, there's so many people really fighting to come here, right? Really fighting for the chance to be able to come here. And it's understandable, right? Because a lot of our countries, even within the Arab Peninsula and Middle East, is just not working out, right? In terms of whether it's corrupt government or other factors involved, it's just difficult over there to really make it happen. So I want to know your perspective. I want to touch on this right now. As someone who has spoken to many people who have gone through that transition, and I believe you've gone through that transition yourself, right? So you studied at the University of Jordan. What was it like when you were going through the process and in your mind, you're like, okay, I want to get to this country and we're going to get to Canada. And as you mentioned, it's like the promised land. And then actually being here and kind of having that disillusionment where it's like, oh, it's just a regular country like everything else. What was that like for you? I just want to know. I'm really curious.
Yeah. So to be honest with you, I have two sisters. One of them who, is living in France and the other living in Sweden. And I have another sister here in Canada. And the first thing that they told me when they saw me like so excited, I'm coming to Canada, and they were like, "Sister, don't get shocked, okay? I don't want you to, you put your goals a little bit down. I really don't want you to get shocked." And I was like, that's interesting. Is it that going to be that way? And that's the issue here, that for example, personally, when I studied PharmD, Doctor of Pharmacy, and I'm originally from Iraq, so I wasn't legally able to work in Jordan. And there was only, like always, people were telling me, "Oh, you're gonna need to travel to Canada or to the United States to practice, okay? So don't expect, to thrive as a PharmD in Jordan. Just go there to practice." So I have been living for 6 years, waiting to graduate just to come to Canada to practice. And then when I came in here, like, oh my God, like the exams are really hard, like the hardest on earth. Canada has 3 licensure exams. For example, the United States, they have 2, okay? And the other issue is that your university is your last name. This is how I found out here in Canada. So if you're not graduated from a Canadian university, your chances of being noticed, I'm saying noticed, okay? Noticed would be so little in comparison with someone who got, for example, graduated from Canada. So that's the other shock, because I was, I'm a talented person. I work in multiple different aspects. I'm a certified clinical researcher, pharmacist, developer, web developer, project manager, all of these things. And I'm not getting, the job that I'm dreaming of. The licensure is really long and difficult, complicated, everything. So yeah, it was a shock. But to be honest with you, I think the first year was the hardest. After that, it got eased and eased and eased, especially after I started RxCourse. After I started RxCourse, I really got noticed. And RxCourse gave me a tremendous opportunity to speak up and to speak with stakeholders, like from the Canadian Pharmacists Association, from the National Association of Regulatory Authorities, NAPRA, for example, the Canadian Society of Hospital Pharmacists, people who are working at the Ontario College of Pharmacists, Ontario Pharmacists Association. All of these, probably I really got bumped up because of RxCourse, because I am trying to give to the community. I'm trying to be an active member. So that was a really good one, because the first year it was really hard, feeling that I think I came to the wrong country. But in the last couple of years, I actually felt exactly the opposite. I was being heard. They were listening to me. They were giving me a lot of opportunities. I got multiple success stories shared. So yeah, I felt like, oh my God, I'm special, and Canada is special. So there is hope. Yeah, it is difficult at the beginning, but it's a very good country. It's amazing, actually.
100%. So I'll tell you, something that I want to touch upon in the sense that you asked that question, and it really, in the way that you answer that question, and it's something that I personally hold dear to my heart. And I might be wrong, I might be right. I don't know. Again, everything that I state on this podcast is opinion. I don't pretend like I know everything, but what you mentioned is very interesting, and it is true. Yeah. In that usually what I've realized is if someone was in a certain mindset, right, in where they currently are, maybe they're in a certain country, they're in a certain place, and they have this mindset right now, or maybe the situation where they're currently struggling. They're not exactly where they want to be in life. Simply changing countries or changing locations, in my experience from the people that I know, does not solve the problem. Even though for many people they think it does. You know what? If I just put myself in a different place, that means all these problems are going to go away and I'm going to be in this like amazing place. And this is why I asked that question. It's because what you shared as an answer is really beautiful and interesting. it's not when you changed countries that things transform for you. You realize, oh, like Canada has its own challenges, it has its own requirements, its own, its own playing field and all these factors that come into play. But ultimately, it's when you changed your behavior that you saw changes in your life around you. You changed what you were doing. You dove into entrepreneurship. You started building this business. You started really challenging yourself in this new way. You start to see your life transform. Mm-hmm. Would you agree with that?
I definitely agree with that. Yeah. The thing is, so the Canadian mentality evolves about being a producer, not a consumer. Okay. This is how they want us to be. And they would open all the doors for you as long as you're being creative. You are bringing something new to the table. So this is how things like correlate here in Canada. Exactly the opposite. And for example, in Arab countries, the Arab countries, they would look, for example, to your history, to your family history, what your family have done in the past years, and what you can done, what you can do in the new years. But they wouldn't really be eager for the change. But in Canada, they are eager for change. They open for new ideas. So that's the thing. So it's actually just to understand the culture and the mentality that the country is living in. Definitely, you'll be able to thrive after that.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that. I'm loving this conversation right now. One thing that I do want to also ask you is, as you mentioned, because you ended up building a business in this field that you specialize in, right? You were already from this background in pharmacy and healthcare, and you built this business. And what it actually did for you is that it helped build your personal brand, as this professional, within this space. And this is very interesting because I see a lot of people in entrepreneurship, and I'm going to take this little tangent because this podcast, mostly entrepreneurs listen to it. I see a lot of people who think of starting a business and then they immediately go to, well, maybe I can start a store on Amazon or, sell this type of product, or let me create like hijabs and sell them online. And it's something always completely separate from who they are and what they're doing. And what we specialize at Ummahpreneur and what we've been doing over the last 3 years is we really work with Muslim professionals to look at, okay, what is it that you're already doing right now? What are your skills? What are your passions? What are your areas of interest? And how can we find a problem within that area and help build a business where it's going to complement your career? It's going to complement your trajectory in life where, if you decide to walk away from this business 5-10 years from now, it has contributed to your growth and not just been something entirely separate from it, right? Yeah. And for you right now, mashallah, with RxCourse, this is exactly what you're noticing is that you've built this business in this space, and it's actually allowed your personal growth and career to start to really grow with that as well. Now, with RxCourse, I know you mentioned that you had to go through a few challenges in the beginning. And of course, with every business, there are challenges. For you, what were the biggest challenges, or maybe, you can maybe summarize them into top 3, or just the biggest challenges you went through in those initial stages as you were building the business? Those are usually the hardest parts, right? The hardest days to go through.
Yeah. So I think, the first challenge that it just popped up in my head is, are we credible? Are we real? Like, we're not right. Fraud. Like, if I purchase something with you, like, you're gonna return my money if I didn't like it. So right. that was number one. People were looking for credibility. Unfortunately, Canada as a country is linked with a lot of fraud. Like, for example, I'm talking about linked with a lot of fraud in the Middle East, because Canada is one of the most wanted countries, and there are a lot of fraudulent immigration programs, right. Study programs. They were targeting people, lay people, unfortunately. How easy it is to get into Canada, and people, they would put their money, a couple of $1,000s, $5,000. I hear a lot of stories that would really like make you feel so sad about that, and how the Canada name, like as a country, is being really smushed with that but fraudulent activities. So that was the first thing. Like we were telling them, hey, we are a Canadian institute, okay? And another thing is that there are some Arab institutes that they would bring in people and they would prepare them for the licensure to come to Canada. But again, we keep telling them, like, how are you going to get your knowledge and your licensure and everything from someone who's not practicing in Canada, who's not living in Canada? So we were just trying to prove, like, hey, we're Canadian, we're credible, we are a registered incorporation, come in here, like, we are here for you, and we follow the Canadian laws and regulations. If anything that you didn't like, we can refund you. So that was the first issue and trouble with us. The second one, since we are in the online, as an online platform, actually, definitely it would be the hiccups in the platform. For example, the platform got down, scammers coming in, hackers coming in, and it was like a nightmare. Another thing, the expense of the servers, because it's different actually. When you build a platform, it's different than a website. So a website, you're just showcasing what you do, and people, they would have minimal interaction with the website. They would just read, probably purchase something. That would be the maximum. But when you have a platform that has courses, quizzes, marks, accounts, messaging, posting, so like, you're gonna need to protect it very well, because people, it's open to the whole world. Anyone can come in and make an account and post something, I don't know, like unrelated or anything scary, I don't know. So that was really, really challenge to get into control, to have that balance of control and security, okay, but maintaining the openness. Like, we're not going to block any country or block anyone. So that was another challenge that we faced. The third challenge about RxCourse actually is the instructors. I think, like, that was really a big challenge, and until this moment it's a progressive challenge. In RxCourse, we have this mentality that I want to be, like, as a person, we want to maintain the quality assurance of the platform, and we want everything to be the highest quality. And it was very important for us to make contracts with independent professionals. Okay, so we keep this relationship independent, so we have this freedom of quality. Like, and that was really a challenge, and until this moment it is a challenge to find that perfect person, who believes in you and who believes in the message that RxCourse is providing, without looking for, like, his personal brand, or, for example, looking for his financial benefits. Because the thing is, with RxCourse, we're trying to be budget friendly. We want our courses to be lesser than the exam fees themselves, despite other competitors who would, price their courses like the double of the exam fees by itself. So it is a challenge when you're telling someone that, hey, our exam fees will, our preparation course would be that much. They would say, no, sorry. But we have a goal. I want to help those newcomers who are already, facing a huge financial burden. And most of them, pharmacists, working as pharmacy assistants on minimum wage. They have families and houses, and the rent, the food, the transportation, and then you have the licensure exam fees. So it's a lot of it's a lot of expenditure. And RxCourse has this vision that we want to be really budget friendly to help them succeed.
I really appreciate you sharing that, because we're actually building a platform at Ummahpreneur ourselves, completely different, of course, for a different goal, different audience, different purpose. But some of the things that you touched upon, I could definitely relate to. We haven't even launched yet, inshallah, and I can't share too much what it's about, but we will launch hopefully by end of year this year, inshallah. You talked about three things: reputation, security, and instructors, and I want to touch on all three a little bit deeper, but I really want to ask you about the second and the third are where I'm really interested right now. The second one, when we talk about security as a platform, and this is for any entrepreneur who might deal in software, for you, what has been the solution? And I know it probably isn't one solution. It probably is multiple solutions that you've implemented over time.
Yeah.
But what for you has been the biggest game changer there in terms of figuring out like your security? What have you guys done to solve that problem?
Um, we actually trial and error.
Hmm.
Like whatever worked with us, I don't think will work with everybody. But changing our servers, that would be one thing. For example, you got some servers that they have the security built in, and security like firewalls to be built in within the platform. Something like Cloudflare. I don't know if you ever heard
Hmm.
of it, but
Yeah, of course.
Cloudflare is very important, crucial platform for any platform that you open for security reasons. You have this like brute force or brute attack button
Hmm.
that you can click on it and it will protect the whole website. So there's like a whole shell
Hmm.
on the website being covered with. So that would be one thing. Another thing, yeah, the practices inside the platform. For example, our students would have a different type of profiles after they purchase a course with us than someone who would be in like just because of the registration and he didn't register or he didn't like purchase anything with us yet. So he just came in, just for registration purposes and that's it. So our students would have much more capabilities than anyone coming from the public, for example.
Hmm.
And another thing is that doing some sort of, um, you know, um, let's say like monitoring, of course, like we increase our monitoring to the platform. Like every single day, we have this at least like once or twice daily that we would monitor and check the activities and the backup is crucial. Okay,
Right.
so just in case of any ransomware, anyone who would give you anything that would say, oh, we deleted all of your platform and you're gonna have to pay me something or whatever. So doing backup, so at least like every 6 hours backup, so you're secure and you feel like you're fine. Like whatever happens, I have the best 6 hours backup. So yeah, these are kind of like the things that we try to do.
I really
And
appreciate that. And just because, like, already with what you gave me, I'm like, oh, okay, notes, notes, notes. You got Cloudflare, backups, firewalls, monitoring. Like, already that, it's like for any software engineer or entrepreneur, it's like, this is already amazing for us to implement. And I want to touch upon the instructor part for you. What has been like for you, what have you realized you needed to do to bring instructors on board to buy into your vision and mission and contribute? Because a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners are in situations where they need to collaborate with other entrepreneurs, maybe other professionals to help them build a common vision, right? A common platform. For you, what has been your strategy or method that you found, well, you know what, this works. This process, even though we don't get 100% yes, this process generally has worked for us. What for you has been that process to bring on the right people who buy into your vision and mission to contribute to your platform?
so actually, I have two different processes.
Mm-hmm.
One of the processes is reference. Like for
Mm-hmm.
example, a friend would tell me like they would just nominate a person, and this like it worked with some, it didn't work with the others. But giving some sort of a nomination helped us because you have like a background, and when you tell a person that I came in because of that person who could be like a very close friend, he wouldn't really want to let him down, right? He wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
want to let him down. So because they would really work better, or they would be really enthusiastic about it. And the lesson that I learned from that is actually you can definitely judge a person from the first week. This is
Okay.
what I've discovered.
And the first week of what? Like first meeting, first week of courses? Like what do you mean
Yeah,
by first
exactly.
week?
So the first week it would be by meetings, by requests, for example,
Mm-hmm.
because the onboarding, as simple as the onboarding. Like when you bring him in, I'm gonna need to ask him a few things, right? To
Yeah.
make the contract, I'm gonna need your resume. I will need you to create an account on the platform. I will need you to create some questions, like these things.
Mm-hmm.
If he is really cooperative and doing everything perfectly, there is like let's say a very high probability that he will maintain that quality. But if
Mm.
the onboarding is a struggle by itself, like if you ask him to create an account and he would, I don't know, spend 2 weeks to create that account, usually it's an indicator that it would
Yes.
be really hard, really
Mm.
hard to collaborate with such a person, and such a person is definitely busy. That's one thing. The other thing, LinkedIn. LinkedIn, for example, helped me to get to know one of our instructors, and we are in a very, very strong relationship with that instructor. He's very talented person. He had got all the credentials on earth, like a master's, PhD, PharmD, and he's so humble. And the thing is, basically, is um, LinkedIn is really, really powerful platform. And when you share insights about your current progress in the entrepreneurship journey, your vision, your mission, what you're planning to do, that would be like kind of a magnet for like-minded people to connect with you. So
Mm-hmm.
that was a reason, for example, that I met that person. He came in actually to request to build a course with us. We built not just a course, we built a whole complete certificate pathway. And even we moved into physical workshops around the world with him.
Amazing.
So it could be both, but the quality, to be honest, the highest quality you can get is by LinkedIn.
Mm.
When you go through the profile, when you read the post, getting into contact with like-minded, I think this is the golden standard. And definitely a person who's not very busy. Like a
Mm.
person who got one job, okay, he can come in with us. But if he's like, he has like two two jobs, three jobs, I'm sorry, like even if he's the most talented person on earth, he doesn't have time for you.
Yeah.
So it's very important to acknowledge that, because sometimes it would be, difficult to let's say to take the defeat and the rejection from that
Mm-hmm.
person, but actually that person's really saving you a lot of time when he rejected your offer because he doesn't have time, rather
Yeah.
than he would accept your offer, okay, and you will be in limbo doing projects that would take a year or 2 years to get done with him. So yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I really appreciate you sharing those tips and that advice. And, in terms of what you're sharing as well, circling back to number one, which was reputation, I've noticed, at least within my personal experience, that reputation is usually, built upon 2 to 3 levers that you can control. One is really just the amount of time that you've been in business. I think a lot of people look at that as well as a testament to, well, are you just like a new business that popped up, or have you put some time in? Do you have a track record? And number two, of course, like results, right? So like your customer experiences, what they're saying about you, what other people say about you. Now, for you specifically, what have you noticed were the most impactful levers that you could control, or maybe not control, when it came to your reputation? What made the biggest difference?
The the reputation and what to control, what to not to control.
Mm-hmm.
I think the thing is about reputation, you can prove yourself by your products and by giving free, like the freemium kind of ideation. So
Mm-hmm.
that really helped us. The thing is, when you are giving your customers the opportunity to try your product, they will understand that you are here for real and you are responsible and you are professional at what you are doing. So the freemium is number one. Number two is getting into contact with them. So it would be really hard for a person who is faking what he's doing to maintain the connection with his customers and answering every single question that comes to their minds. They would like come in for a month or 2 or 3, and that's it. Then they will leave the area. But when you're credible, professional, know what you're doing, and you have this vision in your head that thing that moves you all the day, and you wouldn't stop like until this moment. For us, we're answering the questions of students from all over the MENA region, all over the Middle East, and newcomers in Canada from coast to coast. So that would be a maintenance way of your credibility. And I would really feel sad for some companies that I see them thriving on social media, for example, and all the posts and everything, but they are not replying to comments. Or if they send you a message on inbox, no reply. I mean, how am I going to have a relationship with you as a customer if you're not replying to my simple message over Facebook? So these things, they really helped us when we are being close with every one of them and being available on everything. So RxCourse is available on WhatsApp, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram. So wherever the student feels comfortable, we would be there for them. And there are some students who would ask us, like, for example, I want a phone call. Okay, phone call is it? It is. Or like, for example, can we meet in person? Okay, let's meet in person. It is. I wouldn't have, because if you're really like confident of what you're doing, it doesn't matter how are you going to meet your customers, or where you're going to meet your customers, or what questions your customers are having. You would be able to thrive with them. But if you're lying or fraudulent, you'll get exposed like in a couple of months.
For sure, 100%. I definitely agree. Now, one thing that you mentioned that that I think does prove more challenging for businesses in the later stages will definitely be, and I think that's where you need to have a team of people that you can really rely on as a business owner and CEO. Because as a CEO, I remember in the early days of Ummahpreneur, I was the one on social media replying to all the comments, replying to all the DMs. But now, just due to the nature of my schedule, recording these podcasts, managing, our student program, mentorship, and all these things that we do, along with operating and, supporting my team, it's close to impossible to then have some time to also be on Instagram. So then I delegate that role to, for example, my social media manager or other people within those departments. And I think that's where it's key. It's understanding, well, what are the processes for us as a company that matter when it comes to serving our customers? And then if I can't do them myself, can I delegate them to someone else that I trust with this role, right? Or build a department there where I feel like they can take charge of these operations. But yeah, in terms of what you said, I think it's incredibly important. Now, one question that I ask every single guest, and this one is outside of the business, outside of your experience with RxCourse, and I appreciate you sharing all of these valuable insights that you shared with us today. Jazakallah khair. It's, if you could, kind of teleport back in time and meet Shams, who was maybe a little bit younger. She was 18 years old. She was just about to start on this path of entrepreneurship, of adulthood, of business, all these things that you're doing now. And you could tell her one thing, one piece of advice to hold on to, okay, as she went through this journey, right? What would you tell your younger self?
It would be definitely get a mentor. Get a mentor. Never, never, never walk alone. That would be like the best thing. I'm sorry, like I know Google is there. I know YouTube is there. I know you can search for anything that comes in your head. But when you're having someone who's older than you and you lean into that person whenever you are struggling with something, oh my God, it's like a huge change.
For sure.
It means
100%.
everything. Yeah. And actually, there is there's a saying by Shafi'i, but it's in Arabic. أخي لن تنال العلم إلا بستة سأنبيك عن تبينها ببيان ذكاء وحرص واجتهاد وبلغة وصحبة أستاذ وطول زمان. So he said, like, you're never gonna, or for example, yeah, you're never gonna get into the level of wisdom until, or the level of success until you have to do 6 things. Okay. And so the first thing is to be clever. The second thing is to be dedicated. The third thing is yeah, kind of like a clever,
Commitment.
dedicated,
Yeah,
passionate
dedication.
about what you do. Passionate about what you do. It's very important. And then studying, reading about what you do, and getting a mentor, and the long time, the long duration. So don't think that you will have results in a month or two, a year or two. Things will take some time. You have to be patient with it. And doing some little things every single day is better than doing everything in a couple of days and you get burned out. So that's important advice. And for me, I learned this thing actually when I was in my first year at university, this saying by a Shafi'i. And from that day, I decided to be the best friend of my professors. I would just visit them in their offices and learn from them, bring new ideas. Like if there's something that I didn't like about the faculty or the way that the courses are being run, I would just go and go and tell them, like, hey, wouldn't we do that? Would be better. How about that? How about that? Some of them listened, some of them didn't, but some of them listened, and they had really incredible advices. I was the best friend of my previous CEO in the first company that I worked for. I became the best friend of my CEO. Like I was this young junior employee who would be working with the CEO all the day. What is that doing? But because I learned huge lessons from her, and she supported me a lot. And I continued the journey here in Canada. So actually, one of the things, how am I going to reach the level of getting into the conferences and to getting into the associations and the societies, to reach more level of credibility? And the best thing was to connect with those people who were thriving in their time in these societies and associations and everything. And I got into contact with someone who won multiple prizes back in the 2005, I think 2005, 2006. He had the best pharmacy team and everything. And I chose him and I told him I wanted to be my mentor. Teach me, how did you do that? Okay. So, and he was very nice. Actually, people love it, especially elderly, like someone who is not elderly, like elderly. I'm not talking about 80s and 90s, but someone who had the level of enough wisdom over 40 years of age, and who got an experience of at least 20 years, and they love it. Like I'm a person who would, if I can have any young entrepreneur or any young pharmacist, any young person who's younger than me, like 10 years, and he came to me asking for advices, I would just like open my arms and would give him everything that I have. And so people, they would love it. They would respect you better, and you can reach your maturity much faster because you're in contact with someone who had been through all of that. So yeah, that's the advice. Get a mentor.
100%, 100%. I really appreciate you sharing that. I mean, I was even, as you're talking, I'm like, man, I should like clip this and like show this to my students because it's so important. But really, thank you so much for sharing your insights, sharing your value. This was an absolute pleasure of a conversation. So jazakallah khair for that. Where can people go if they want to connect with you? Even go and sign up to RxCourse, go and be part of your courses and be part of your platform as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so where can people go to do that? Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no problem.
Just you can just type in www.rxcourse.com. That's
beautiful.
all. Yeah,
awesome.
And you can connect with me. Actually, RxCourse, as I said, it's a social media. So you're gonna find my profile on RxCourse. You're gonna find our blogs, and you can connect with me over LinkedIn. I'm a very active member at LinkedIn. So on LinkedIn, you're just going to go to LinkedIn and then Shams Qaend there. Yeah. And there were social media. Any social media that you have on your phone, just go there, Google RxCourse or search RxCourse, and you're going to find us on all the social medias available.
Awesome. Well, we'll make sure to drop the links to that in the episode notes. So if you're listening, go and check out the episode notes. And if you're watching on YouTube or any other video platform, go and look in the description. We'll have the links there to go and sign up to the platform. Go and give it a sign up and go and check it out if that is relevant to you. Or if you know someone that could benefit, make sure to send them the website and let them know that this platform is available. Jazakallah khair, Shams. It was an absolute pleasure in an episode. I really enjoyed it. Thank you for coming on. And wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you. Wa alaikum assalam.